the pyramid was not simply a monument that was just simply standing there to be looked at, and for one to look at the pyramidion and be swayed by all of its power. It also contained inside writing, with philosophy, with literature, with uh, uh, understandings of how people should conduct their lives, and paintings of all kinds that were drawn on the walls with the by the priest and so forth. It was a very, it is, of course, they have what they call pyramid texts. You probably heard of this notion of pyramid text. The pyramid text notion, what that means is that inside all these pyramids, there is enough writing that is more writing than you can have in all of classical Europe. If you take all the Greek and Roman books that people talk about as classical literature and put them together, you will not have the number, the volumes that you would have from the pyramid texts of ancient Kemet. That's how powerful it was. And yet we sort of like want to skip around that. Even Zahi Hawass won't tell you that. I'm telling you, he will not tell you that. He will talk to you about what he dug up and how he saw this and that and so on, but he knows nothing almost about the philosophy and the concept of what was behind what he's looking at. And the reason he doesn't is because he doesn't take an Afrocentric orientation. He takes an orientation that comes out of archaeology, out of Western archaeology. That's why he made that strange statement about the shape and face and skull of King Tutankhamun. You may have seen this years ago. Was the same as somebody in Europe or northern Africa, because he claimed his idea was that somehow northern Africa was different from the rest of Africa, but Africa was a black continent beginning, and the people who are in Africa who are not black, who came later, would be people who conquered, the invaders. Those people came later to Africa, and they had, when they left Africa they were black. When they came back, they were not. So he won't show you, for example, he won't tell you about Abu or Said. He won't tell you. He won't. This city is the city that's not called Aswan. The city that's called Aswan. He won't tell you about that, because the history and the culture of Kemet, the very big power of it, comes, at least for Kemet's side, from Aswan. He will probably say very little about Luxor, because Luxor was the greatest city in the world. In Luxor, of course, remember this again. This is what conquerors do. They love changing the names of things. This is like, Trump said, we're going to call the Gulf of Mexico, we're going to call it the Gulf of America. They do that, and they make it stick because they have military power. So this is basically what happened to Kemet. If I ask you about the city of Abu, you would know. If I ask you about Abu Island, you would know, because what did they do? They changed the name. And so now we call it Aswan. But if I ask you about the great city of the world, which was at one time the greatest city in all of the ancient world, that city was called Waset. Waset, what did they do? They changed well, the Greeks changed it first. They called it Thebes. And after the Greeks called it Thebes, then the Arabs conquered, and they called it Luxor. And so today we call it Luxor. In fact, in Las Vegas, they got a hotel they call the Luxor. And that's all because they took these African names and they changed them. It's just like the city of Mennefer. The city of Mennefer is the same city that they named. Can you believe this? That in the United States of America, they have a city that's called Memphis. And what the Greeks did to Mennefer, they changed the name of it and called it Memphis. Memphis, an African city, is the name of the city in Tennessee called Memphis. That comes from an African city, Mennefer. But do the people of Memphis know? No. They Memphis, they may think Memphis is Greek, but it was the Greek way of changing the African name Mennefer, the beautiful wall. They took that name and then they changed it to Memphis, you see. And then so even segregation is in Memphis. So we happen to have we name our city Memphis, right? It's an African name. So he won't tell you about that. I'm telling you, Zahi Hawass will not tell you even about the African wig room. When I have taken groups, many groups, and others of you have done this too, I'm sure, who've taken groups to Kemet. In the old museum, they've just opened up the new museum, but in the old museum, which had been started by the French, that old museum had a room that was called the wig room. But you couldn't, if you didn't ask somebody, you couldn't, you wouldn't know where to go to find the wig room. Because the wig room was sort of hidden. It was not on a tour guide would not take you to the wig room. It was one of those places that I found by wandering around in the museum myself. And then I would take all my groups to the wig room. Why? Because in the wig room, all you saw was African hair. And all the wigs were African hair. So it is a stunning thing. I am not sure, given the direction that I saw happening in Egypt, I am not sure that the Arab government or people in charge, custodians, still have the wig room in the new museum. When you go, those of you who will go before me there, go there and ask them, you want to see the wigs and see what they have done, because I have pictures of the African wigs. All this was a powerful thing, but it was not seen.